A famous pianist who's going to play for us tonight. Do you know a little bit about him, and tell us?
Oh, Thomas Pandolfi is a great pianist. That's the reason we invited him. I actually listened to him playing Chopin and Paderewski a few times, and I really, enjoy listening to him, and I think the audience will enjoy today.
Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pandolfi played brilliantly and offered just about the right amount of commentary between pieces to make his musical selections even more enjoyable.
What is it about Chopin's music that is so ideal? Well, it is this perfect marriage of poetic lyricism and brilliant virtuosity.
After the performance, I had a chance to sit and talk with Thomas Pandolfi. How does it feel to be playing in the residence of the ambassador from Poland to the United States and playing Chopin?
Well, that's a very great honor. Chopin, of course, is the principal Pole composer and the ideal composer for the piano. As I mentioned during the concert, nobody did it better with regard to the marriage of pianistic brilliance, virtuosity, and this deep poetic expression, which is absolutely unparalleled. And for me, it carries me to another world, and I hope my listeners feel the same way. I try to structure the program, first of all, as the ambassador said in his opening remarks, to pair American composers, two great American composers with two great Polish composers. The Phantom of the Opera was a fun encore to do with a British composer. But that's what sort of the theme that was running throughout. And I certainly hope the audience enjoyed it. They certainly roared their approval, so I'm very appreciative of that.
One of the things I like so much is you guided us through each of the pieces. Told us a little bit about the background of the piece, what to listen for. Do you do that all the time in your concerts?
I didn't used to do that at all. I thought it kind of broke the flow when I first was asked to do that. This was a number of seasons back. And then a presenter just out of the clear blue said, when I showed up for the concert, would you mind speaking a little bit about that? And I thought, well, I don't know, maybe. And I thought, well, let me give it a try. I did it, and the audience responded very positively to it. And ever since then, it seems to be an ongoing trend that's growing. A lot of conductors do it, sort of verbal program notes with the audience in between their selections, or do pre-concert lecture. I think it doesn't matter necessarily the format, but the audiences seem to like the personal connection between artist, music, and they themselves, the audience. And it kind of makes it a little bit more entertaining, I think, and maybe a little bit more interesting. Know what to listen for, know what the artist's views are. Sometimes it's a little academic to read program notes, as wonderful as they might be. And I understand there's some great program notes in tonight's booklet, and I'll be curious to read them myself. But even with those there, it's nice to hear the artist's point of view.
So we get to know you a little bit. Exactly. Tell us a little bit about your background.
My background? Well, I fell in love with music at a very young age. I was about 4.5, 5 years old. Parents played all the time classical music in the house. Every time there was a piano piece that came on the radio or my parents' old LPs, I would run to the piano, this upper register of the piano, and try to play along. And I'm told the sounds would fit. They would match rhythmically at the very least, sometimes harmonically, even though I didn't know what I was doing at that point. Then I started lessons, and my progress started to be rather rapid. By the time I was 10, I was publicly performing. 17, went to Juilliard and did my formal training there for 6 years, undergraduate, graduate. And slowly but surely started to perform on a larger scale for audiences worldwide.
What's the kick? What's the kick of you sitting down at the piano for yourself?
The moment I sit down, I get the same enjoyment that I do the first time I ever heard a piece of music. And I hope that always transmits to the audience. I don't know if it does, I can only hope. But that's the way I feel inside. And that's the enjoyment I get out of it.
Chopin loved the dance forms, and he composed in waltzes and mazurkas and polonaises. They all have something in common. All three dances are in three-quarter time. And that means, of course, there are 3 beats per measure. But what makes each one distinct is the following. The waltz is probably the easiest to understand because you have this sort of pa accompaniment underneath the melody, which gives the waltz its particular lilt and charm. You might think of each of the beats as light, lighter, and lightest. The mazurka is exactly the same, except every other measure, the 3rd beat gets a special accentuation, which gives the mazurka its unique character. And then, of course, the polonaise is the most stately and noble and grand of the dances. And you have this very distinct rhythm, which is very clearly heard throughout. And that gives the polonaise its grandeur, really. So I will play these next 2 works in order, without speaking in between. The waltz in C-sharp minor, which has a rather melancholic mood in the outer sections, but yet still, of course, maintains this style of the waltz beautifully. And then the middle section has a ray of sunshine as it delves a little bit into the major key. And then we have the polonaise in A-flat major, opus 53, sometimes known as the heroic polonaise, which is arguably Chopin's most famous composition and most beloved, certainly most rousing.